Good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. Tonight's recap will start on page 156, One Morning He Took, and will end on page 158, From Which He Was Long Absent. And our study portion tonight will start on page 158. So you see there were three, and we'll end on page 161. We'll number many hundreds. Are there any announcements tonight?
Hi family, my name's Jamie. I'm a very grateful recovered alcoholic, and as per our group conscience, the books that we are going to donate to the libraries, 3 of the local libraries, are all here at my house. They are stamped. We're going to, I'll probably start distributing them next week. There was something else, Lppbbsg here at my house for those who want to come for the 4th of July. And Trish, my internet's unstable tonight, so you make sure you're recording. That's all I got. So good evening, family. Again, my name is Jamie. Very grateful recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted, and sharing is to not distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. And a friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God and let the craziness of the day drift away. Ask God to help you focus on the study.
Sorry. Enjoy your time with God, folks. And on your screen in front of you is our family's fog light prayer. If you'd like to join us, feel free to. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Heather.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Heather, and I am your recovered alcoholic secretary. I have asked Kenny to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what exactly it means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Kenny.
I can't blow it up on my phone, so I can't see it. So I have to pass. Okay, I can see it now. Hi, I'm Kenny. I'm alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered, but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergy, the allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We ask that you be courteous and be ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a big book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapsed. And the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time? All right. Welcome to anybody. And the recovered alcoholics? Nice. These are your potential sponsors. Is there anybody celebrating a milestone this week? All right, thank you. If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by Buzzard Mail, delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you. See you next week. Thank you for letting me be your alcoholic secretary.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Kennedy, for your service tonight. From Chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we've discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 1. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 2. And please refer to page 562 of Alcoholics Anonymous. Come on in, Marilyn.
Hi everyone, my name is Marilyn and I'm an alcoholic. Good to see you beautiful people. Okay, I'm going to talk on Tradition 2. Tradition 2 reads, "For our group purpose is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern." And on the long form for Tradition 2 is, "For our group purpose is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience." Same thing. So the first one, I always like to, as a traditionalist, I always like to refer to this because it really opens up my eyes to take a look at where my character defects are or how I can be helpful in group meetings. And some of the ways that it makes me open up my eyes is as, do I criticize or do I trust and support my group officers, AA committees, and office workers, newcomers, and old-timers? Am I absolutely trustworthy, even in secret, with the 12 steps or jobs of other AA responsibilities? Do I look for credit in my AA job, praise for AA ideas? Do I often feel the need to save face in group discussions, or can I yield in good spirit? I love that. Or could I yield in good spirit to the group conscience and work with it? And that's what this tradition is telling me what I need to do. And the group too. Do I complain about the decisions that my group makes, even though I do not attend the business meetings where these decisions are made? And I want to read something from The Language of the Heart. It was written January 1948, and I absolutely love what it's saying here. So I'll read a little bit from there. Sooner or later, every AA comes to depend on a power greater than himself. He finds that God of his understanding is not only a source of strength, but also a source of positive direction. Realizing that an entirely different complexion, he experiences a new inner security together with such a sense of destiny and purpose as he has never known before. He learns from daily experience what his remaining character defects are, and becomes ever more willing that they be removed. The group begins to recognize its own defects of character, and by one, they are removed or lessened as some process continues. The group becomes better able to receive right directions from its own affairs. The greater power is then working through a clear group conscience. We humbly hope and believe that a growing AA tradition will prove to be the will of God for us. Many people are coming to think that Alcoholics Anonymous is to extend a new form of human society, a discussion for the first tradition. No corrosive human authority, because each AA of necessity has a sensitive and responsive conscience, and becomes alcohol will discipline him severely if he backslides. We are finding we have little need to man-made rules of regulation, despite the fact that we do veer off at times on tangents. We are becoming more able to depend absolutely on the long-term stability of the AA group itself. Therefore, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are certain that there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. So beautiful. Thank you.
And thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much. Great job. Thank you for being of service. And now it's time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things we often hear is, there are no musts in the program. And Zane is going to come in and tell us what it says on page 14 in the second paragraph. Welcome, Zane. You'll have to unmute.
Yeah, hi, Zane Alcoholic. I must turn in all things to the Father of Light who presides over us all.
Thank you,
Thank
Zane.
you. Thank you, my friend.
As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
As we study, in order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use a Big Book study guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we're going to start our recap on page 156, which will be read tonight by Nancy, followed by our study portion, which will be read by Larry. After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back at our study portion read by Larry. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we are going to read the material once through, then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the question gives us a new light in which to consider the studied material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know your time is finished or to start wrapping up your thoughts.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example, with your sponsor, or maybe a therapist, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
And how we arrived at this point, here's the crash version of it tonight. We start with the title page, we do the preface, the forewords, the first 11 chapters, Dr. Bob's story, 2 weeks worth of traditions, and closing out with week 94, all through this question and answer format. Tonight we are on week 86, so in another 8 weeks we will be circling back around and beginning again. Thank you all who have been here and supported us for so many years, and we hope you will continue to come back and hey, bring a friend of me. Somebody you don't like, sentence them to a Life in a Big Book study of Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever it takes to help grow the group. Thank you.
Before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. And just a reminder, please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded in audio only, so that we can put it onto our website and onto our YouTube channel. So, Nancy, come on in with our recap, please. And you are muted.
Okay, Nancy alcoholic. One morning he took the bull by the horns and set out to tell those who feared what his trouble had been. He found himself surprisingly well listening and learned that many knew of his drinking. Stepping into his car, he made the rounds of people he had hurt. He trembled as he went about, for this might mean ruin, particularly to a person in his line of business. At midnight, he came home exhausted, but very happy. He has not had a drink since. As we should see, he now means a great deal to his community, and the major liabilities of the 30 years of hard drinking have been repaired in full. But life was not easy for the two friends. Plenty of difficulties presented themselves. Both saw what they must keep spiritually active. One day, they called up the head nurse of the hospital, local hospital. They explained the need and inquired if she had a first-class alcoholic suspect. She replied, "Yes, we've got a culprit. He's just beaten up a couple of nurses. Goes off his head completely when he's drinking. But he's a grand chap when he's sober. No, though he's been in here 8 times in the last 6 months. Understand he was once a well-known lawyer in town, but just now they got him strapped very tight." There's an asterisk. Here was a prospect, always, but by the description, none too promising. The use of the spiritual principles in such cases was not so well understood as it is now. But one of the friends then put him in a private room, reading down. 2 days later, a future fellow of Alcoholics Anonymous stared glassily and at the strangers beside his bed. "Who are you, fellow? And why this private room? I was always in a ward before," said one of the visitors. "We're giving you a treatment for alcoholism." Hopelessness was written large on the man's face as he replied, "Oh, but that's no use. Nothing would fix me. I'm a gunner. The last 3 times I got drunk on the way home from here. I'm afraid to go out the door. I can't understand it." For an hour, the two friends told him about their drinking experiences. Over and over, he would say, "That's me. That's me. I drank like that." The man in the bed was told of the acute poisoning from which he suffered, how it deteriorates the body of an alcoholic and warps his mind. There was much talk about the mental state preceding the first drink. "Yes, that's me," said the sick man. They, the very image. "You fellows know your stuff all right, but I don't see what good it will do. You fellows are somebody. I was once, but I'm a nobody now. From what you tell me, I know more than ever. I can't stop." At this, both the visitors burst into a laugh. Said the featured fellow anonymous, "The only thing to laugh about it, that I can see." The two friends spoke of their spiritual experience and told him about the course of action they carried out. He interrupted, "I used to be strong for the church, but that won't fix it. I prayed to God on hangover mornings and sworn that I'd never touch another drop, but by 9 o'clock I'll be dull as an owl." Next day found the prospect more receptive. He had been thinking it over. Maybe you're right, he said. God ought to be able to do anything. Then he added, he sure didn't do much for me when I was trying to fight this blues racket alone. On the third day, the lawyer gave his life to the care and direction of his creator and said he was perfectly willing to do anything necessary. His wife came, scarcely daring to be hopeful, though she thought she saw something different about her husband already. He had begun to have a spiritual experience. That afternoon he put on his clothes and walked from the hospital a free man. He entered a political campaign, making speeches, frequenting men's gathering places of all sorts, often staying up all night. He lost the race, but only a narrow margin. But he had found God, and in finding God, he had found himself. That was in June 1935. He never drank again. He too has become a respected and useful member of the community. He has helped he has helped other men recover, and is a power in the church from which he was long absent. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And Larry, come on in.
I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. My screen says my internet is unstable, so if I go in and out, just mute me and have somebody else read. So you see, there were 3 alcoholics in that town who now felt they had to give to others what they had found or be sunk. After several failures to find others, a fourth turned up. He came through an acquaintance who had heard the good news. He proved to be a devil-may-care young fellow whose parents could not make out whether he wanted to stop drinking or not. They were deeply religious people, much shocked by their son's refusal to have anything to do with church. He suffered horribly from his sprees, but it seemed as if nothing could be done for him. He consented, however, to go to the hospital, where he occupied the very room recently vacated by the lawyer. He had 3 visitors. After a bit, he said, "The way you fellows put this spiritual stuff makes sense. I'm ready to do business. I guess the old folks were right after all." So one more was added to the fellowship. All this time, our friend of the hotel lobby incident remained in that town. He was there 3 months. He now returned home, leaving behind his first acquaintance, the lawyer and the devil-may-care chap. These men had found something brand new in life, though they knew they must help other alcoholics if they would remain sober. That motive became secondary. It was transcended by the happiness they found in giving themselves for others. They shared their homes, their slender resources, and gladly devoted their spare hours to fellow sufferers. They were willing by day or night to place a new man in the hospital and visit him afterward. They grew in numbers. They experienced a few distressing failures But in those cases, they made an effort to bring the man's family into spiritual way of living. Thus relieving much worry and suffering. A year and 6 months later, these three had succeeded with 7 more, seeing much of each other. Scarce an evening passed that someone's home did not shelter a little gathering of men and women happy in their release and consistently thinking they might present their discovery to some newcomer in addiction. To these casual get-togethers, it became customary to set apart one night a week for a meeting to be attended by anyone or everyone interested in a spiritual way of life. Aside from fellowship and sociability, the prime objective was to provide a time and place where new people might bring their problems. Outsiders became interested. One man and his wife placed their large home at the disposal of this strangely assorted crowd. This couple has since become so fascinated that they have dedicated their home to the work. Many a distracted wife has visited this house to find loving and understanding companionship among the women who knew their problem, to hear from the lips of their husbands what had happened to them, to be advised how her own wayward mate might be hospitalized and approached when next he stumbled. Many a man, yet dazed from his hospital experience, has stepped over the threshold of that home into freedom, and many an alcoholic who entered there came away with an answer. He succumbed to that gay crowd inside who laughed at their own misfortunes and understood impressed by those who visited him at the hospital. He capitulated entirely when later, in an upper room of his house, he heard the story of some man whose experience closely tailed with his own. The expression on the faces of the women that indefiable, something in the eyes of the men, the stimulating and electric atmosphere of the place conspired to let him know that here was heaven at last. The very practical approach to his problem, the absence of intolerance of any kind, the informality, the genuine democracy, the uncanny understanding which these people were irresistible, he and the wife could leave elated by the thought of what they could now do for some stricken acquaintance and his family. They knew they had a host of new friends It seemed that they had known these strangers always. They had seen miracles, and one was to come to them. They had visioned the great reality, their loving and all-powerful Creator. Now, this house will hardly accommodate its weekly visitors, for they numbered 60 and 80 as a rule. All alcoholics are being attracted from far and near, from surrounding towns. Families drive long distances to be present. A community 30 miles away has 15 fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous. Being a large place, we think that someday its fellowship will number many hundreds.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for being a service tonight. And we are going to go right back to where Larry started reading tonight. And tonight's batting order will be Kenny, Zane, Nancy, Stephanie, and Pickle Chips herself. So, Kenny, we are going to kick it off with you with a two-part question. Oh, everybody will need to unmute. Nancy, you're still muted. Okay, thank you. Kenny, two-part question. Now, how many sober alcoholics were there? And B, what did they believe they must do to survive?
Wow. Oh.
Top page 158, Kenny. Starts out with "So you see."
Oh.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Kenny. Zane, can you take that question? I'll give it to you again. Two-part question. A, now how many sober alcoholics were there? And B, what did they believe they must do to survive?
So, you see, there were 3 alcoholics in the town who now felt that they had to give to others what they had found or be sunk.
Thank you. Nancy, did they find another one right away?
After several failures to find others, a fourth turned up.
Thank you. Stephanie, how did they find this one?
He came through an acquaintance who had heard the good news.
Thank you. Pickle Chips, two-part question. What kind of guy was he? And B, what could his parents not determine?
He proved to be a devil-may-care young fellow whose parents could not make out whether he wanted to stop drinking or not.
Thank you. Kenny, coming back to you if you're caught up with us now.
No, I'm not.
Okay, then it's still on page 158. Zane, I'm going to come back to you. Two-part question. What kind of people were they? And B, they were also shocked by their son's refusal to do what?
They were deeply religious people, much shocked by their son's refusal to have anything to do with the church. At the top of page 159 now. Yeah? Yep.
Yeah, top of page 159, Kenny. So, Nancy, two-part question. Was he in pretty bad shape? And B, did he appear to be hopeless?
He suffered horribly from his grief, but it seemed he asked if nothing could be done for him.
Thank you. Steph, two-part question. What did he consent to do? And B, by chance, what room did he occupy?
He consented, however, to go to the hospital, where he occupied the very room recently vacated by the lawyer.
Thank you. Pickle Chips, how many visitors did he have?
He had 3 visitors.
Okay, coming back to you again, Kenny. After listening to them for a bit, what did he have to say? 3 sentences, please.
After a bit, he said, the way you fellas fit the spiritual stuff makes sense. I am ready to do business. I guess the old folks were right after all.
Thank you, Zane. So now Alcoholics had how many members?
So one more was added to the fellowship.
Thank you, Nancy. All this time, where was Bill W?
Okay.
Starts
Now I
with
messed up. What is it?
Starts with all this time. All this time. Okay.
Okay. Fasting.
Okay, Stephanie,
Well, don't look at it.
Stephanie, will you take that question? All this time, where was Bill W?
All this time, our friend of the hotel lobby incident remained in that town.
Thank you. Terry, how long did he remain in Akron?
He was there 3 months.
90 days, folks, 90 days. Kenny, when he returned to New York, what did he leave?
He returned home, leaving behind his first acquaintance and the lawyer and the devil may care chap.
Thank you. Zane, what had these men found?
These men have found something brand new in life.
Thank you. Nancy, two-part question. A, what did they know they must do to remain sober? And B, that motive became what?
Well, they must have what other alcoholics. What about his?
Somebody's getting feedback.
Yeah.
So somebody have their volume too loud? Okay, try it again.
Okay. Though they knew they must help the alcoholics if they would remain sober, that's what they became secondary.
Okay, it's feeding back through one of you that's got a hot mic. So, Stephanie, why was that? Stephanie, the question was, why was that? Starts with, it was transcended.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I moved my card. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll move on to Terry and then you can catch up. Terry, why was that?
It was transcended by the happiness they found in giving themselves for others.
Thank you. Kenny, what did they share with fellow sufferers?
They shared their homes, their slender resources, and gladly devoted their spare hours to fellow sufferers.
Thank you. Zane, at any time, what were they willing to do?
They were willing by day or night to place the new man in the hospital and visit him afterward.
Thank you. Nancy, they did what?
Well, I'm all messed up. I'm sorry.
We're on.
That's me.
Yeah, I'll pass it to you, Steph. No, I lost my place.
They grew in numbers.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they did. Pickle Chips, three-part question. A, what did they experience? B, were their failures? What did they do about the drinker's family? And C, this resulted in relieving what?
They experienced a few distressing failures, but in those cases they made an effort to bring the man's family into a spiritual way of living, thus relieving much worry and suffering.
Thank you. Kenny, coming back to you. After 18 months, how many did they have in the fold?
A year and 6 months later, these three had succeeded with 7 more.
Thank you. Zane, three-part question. A, were they close? B, what happened in the evenings? And C, what was their constant thought?
Seeing much of each other, scarce an evening passed that someone's home did not shelter a little gathering of men and women, happy in their release and constantly thinking how they might present their discovery to some newcomer.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, did you find your place?
No, pass me.
Okay, Stephanie, two-part question. What became customary? And B, who were these meetings for?
In addition to these casual get-togethers, it became customary to set apart one night a week for a meeting to be attended by anyone or everyone interested in a spiritual way of life.
And I've got the first of a few comments I'm coming in with. Remember that the folks who participated in the writing of this book were still meeting with the Oxford group meetings. It was in the fall of 1939 that the alcoholic squad of the Oxford group first split off, and the fellowship then took their name from the title of this book.
Thank you. Terry, aside from the fellowship and social aspects of the meeting, what were their principal purpose?
Aside from fellowship and sociability, the prime object was to provide a time and place where new people might bring their problems.
Thank you. Kenny, who became interested in what the alcoholics were doing?
Outsiders became interested.
Okay. Nancy, what did a man and his wife do?
One man and his wife raised their large home at the disposal of this extremely assorted crowd.
Thank you. Trish?
The couple was Clarence and T. Henry Williams, non-alcoholic members of the Oxford group.
Thank you. And Stephanie, what did they do with their home?
This couple has since become so fascinated that they have dedicated their home to the work.
Thank you. Terry, what has many a distracted wife found at the Williams house? A long sentence, please.
Many a distracted wife has visited this house to find loving and understanding companionship among women who knew her problem, to hear from the lips of their husbands what had happened to them, to be advised how her own wayward mate might be hospitalized and approached when next he stumbled.
Thank you. And Kenny, coming back to you, what have many alcoholic men found there?
Many a man, yet days from the hospital experience, have stepped it over the threshold of that home into freedom.
Thank you. Zane, what did they come away with?
Many an alcoholic who entered there came away with an answer.
Thank you. Nancy, what did he succumb to?
You have to pass me again, I'm sorry.
Okay, Stephanie, what did he succumb to?
He succumbed to that gay crowd inside who laughed at their own misfortunes and understood his.
Thank you. Terry, three-part question. A, with what was he impressed? B, where was it that he made that surrender? And C, when did he surrender?
Pressed by those who visited him at the hospital, he capitulated entirely when later in an upper room of this house he heard the story of some man whose experience closely tallied with his own.
The normal practice at that time was to help the suffering alcoholic surrender to his hopeless condition while he was hospitalized. Then, in the room upstairs, surrender on his knees to his higher power. He was then sponsored into the meeting downstairs.
Thank you, Trish. And Kenny, coming back to you, what appealing characteristics conspired to let the alcoholic know that he was heaven at last? Here was heaven at last.
The expression on the faces of the women that indefinable something in the eyes of their men. The stimulating and electric atmosphere of the place conspired to let him know that here was heaven at last.
Thank you. And Zane, what did the recovered alcoholics and their wives have that made this irresistible?
The very practical approach to his problem, the absence of intolerance of any kind, the informality, the genuine democracy, the uncanny understanding which these people had were irresistible.
Thank you. Nancy, are you caught up with us?
Yes.
Oh, okay. How would the newcomer and his wife feel as they left the Williams home?
He and his wife would live elated by the thought of what they could now do for some stricken acquaintance and his family.
Thank you. Stephanie, what did they then know?
They knew they had a host of new friends. It seemed they had known these strangers always.
True story. Terry, what had they seen?
They had seen miracles, and one was to come to them.
Thank you. Kenny, what had they envisioned?
They had a vision, the great reality, their loving, all-powerful creator, and their all-powerful creator.
Yep, that's right. Thank you. I'm sorry. And Zane, at the time of the writing of this book, how many were attending meetings at the Williams home?
Now this house will hardly accommodate its weekly visitors, for they number 60 or 80 as a rule.
Thank you. Nancy, where were the alcoholics coming from?
Alcoholics are being attracted from far and near.
And Stephanie, from surrounding towns, what was happening?
From surrounding towns, families drive long distances to be present.
Thank you. Terry, how many members came from a community 30 miles away?
Community 30 miles away has 15 fellows of Alcoholics Anonymous.
That nearby community was Cleveland.
And let's see, that was Terry. Kenny, final question is, since Cleveland was a large place in 1939, what did they anticipate?
Being a large place, we think that someday its fellowship will number in the hundreds.
Chris, you want to come in with that
And
comment on the asterisk?
Asterisk refers at the bottom by saying this was written in 1939.
Thank you, folks. Wonderful job. Everybody can remute themselves and lower their hands. And now we are open for comments, questions, observations, experience, spiritual experience for those who would like to share. Nancy, you still have your hand up. Did you want to share? Zane, did you want to share?
Yeah, hi, Zane Alcoholic. Thanks for holding the meeting, everybody, and yeah, it was good to be here. It's been a while since I've been to this meeting, and yeah, I'm just grateful for those for Dr. Bob and Bill. That Bill found Dr. Bob, and then they saw that there was something else and that they could help others like me and you, to recover from this disease. And I admit before I come into the meeting, I was in a little bit in the pity pot. I was a little bit, my mood wasn't in the best. Starting to write my fourth step, and and I look back at how these guys did it back then, and they did it so quick, and just grateful for it today. I mean, now they were talking about their third meeting, was it the Cleveland one? And where I live in Christchurch, New Zealand, we have about 60 meetings a week, which I think is pretty cool. One of the old timers said, well, there's really only about 12 meetings here and about 48 resentments. So, a lot of resentment meetings that have opened up. But, I mean, I guess that's good. It gives us a variety of meetings. But, it's good to come to a meeting where the big book is studied and to learn about, about the history of how it's come about. Currently been listening to a book, audio book, The Writing of the Big Book, and that's very interesting, and learning about the history and stuff. And I'm just a grateful alcoholic, and thanks for having me. Thanks.
Thank you, my friend. Good to have you with us tonight. Thank you for your participation. Hey, Pickle Chips, welcome home.
Why, thank you. I'm Terry Pickle Chips, recovered alcoholics. This is one of my favorite chapters in the book, A Vision for You. But the part I just always, whenever we read this, it always touches me. Many a man, yet dazed from his hospital experience, has stepped over the threshold of that home into freedom. And it touches me because when I stepped over the threshold of my first AA meeting, I never went back. My life completely changed by just making that step, that huge step, I must add. It was a very huge step that I took over that threshold and have never had to look back. And I think of all the people who come into their first AA meeting, whether they relapse or not, it doesn't matter. They're stepping over that threshold into a new way of life. And I love that. And then there's another part, I can't see it right away, where they talk about, in the meetings, they find the absence of intolerance of any kind. I wish that was 100% true today, but our meetings are pretty big, and there can be some amounts of intolerance, but as a whole, I like that. The informality, the genuine democracy, and uncanny understanding, which these people had, were irresistible. And it was irresistible to me to find a group of people that were so different than what I was used to. And the gayness, the we are not a glum lot. I could stand outside a meeting and just listen to the camaraderie and the laughter, and that really attracted me. It still does today. It really attracts me to AA and how close we become over time. And we truly are a fellowship. So thank you for being part of my fellowship.
Thank you, Terry. Love you, sister. Toe tap and Pickle, come on in.
Hi everybody, I'm Trisha and I am an alcoholic. And, I've got to say, one of the first things that I was grateful for, even though I didn't realize that it was gratitude at the time, and probably one of the first things in life from preteen on that I was grateful for, was the alcoholics who talked to me prior to coming in the rooms, who realized that they had to work with other alcoholics for themselves to stay sober, because that action on their part is what got me finally willing to walk in the rooms so that I could get sober. And as it says a couple of sentences later, they were willing day or night. If I had a phone call, if I had a question, if I wanted to get together, they were willing day or night to talk. And also when I was new in the program, people being willing to talk all the time. Not that I picked up that phone a whole lot, but when I did, there was usually somebody always willing to pick up on the other end. And I loved how when I was able to finally step over that threshold the first time, there was a lot of fear. There was uncertainty. I didn't know what I was walking into, because the person that I was meeting wasn't there yet. So I had to wander through the sea of people that I didn't know, and I wasn't sure if I belonged. But, I did come away with an answer. And I felt like I was home when I walked in, just from the people greeting me, just from the people who were there and welcoming me, even though they didn't know me, they didn't know how long I was going to stay or if I had been there before. So I guess succumbing to the gay crowd inside in that room, because it was an anniversary night, so there were a whole lot of people there. And there was a lot of people laughing at their own misfortunes, which made me realize that they understood mine. And that night I was able to recognize the spirituality, the belief that they had in their God, and recognizing that, maybe this God thing is all what it's cracked up to be. And maybe I need to pay it a little bit more attention, but I wasn't quite willing. I was willing to look at it at some point, if not that night. And then one of the greatest gifts I've gotten here, aside from sobriety, because that's like the greatest gift, but one of the big things I got here was having that host of new friends. And over the years I've had a lot of friends come into my life, come out of my life. Some I've lost touch with, some every now and then we reconnect. But so many seemed like, even though I may only know them for a few years, the people who I've met on Zoom or some people that I've met prior to that, it seemed like I've known them forever. And it's hard to think of life without some of these people. And the miracles in the room. The miracles, not just the miracles of sobriety, but the miracles of life, the miracles of growth, the miracles of what I see other people overcome. Willingness to do, the things I was willing to finally do after fighting and hemming and hawing and carrying on. Nope, I'm not doing that. Nope, I don't want to do that. But finally giving in and truly trusting in the God of my understanding. And realizing that, fighting was futile. Fighting God just isn't going to work. And once I stopped that fight and truly began to trust God and rely on God, that's the biggest miracle in my life, is the realization that I don't have to have control. I don't have to be in charge. Because there's too much going on around me that I can't control. And there's so much going on around me that I wouldn't want to control even if I could. But being able to reach out and help others, being willing to reach out and help others, because that was so far removed from my nature. It was always, what can I get, what can I get, what can you give me? But now, being able and willing and comfortable to reach out to people. When I first came in, it's like I didn't know how to share what I had, because I didn't know what I had. And then when people asked me to be their sponsor, I said yes, because I didn't want to say no. but I didn't know what I was doing helping them either. So we kind of stumbled along and learned together. But the willingness now of being willing to help, and now having a better handle on what it is I'm doing as I work with these ladies, and watching them grow. That's such an added bonus to the love and the friendship and the sobriety and the relationship with God. That's just one more miracle, is being able to watch everybody else grow. Watching the lights come on and realize somebody is home has always been a favorite part. But being able to travel distance to go to other meetings, not just sticking to the meetings down the street, but driving an hour and a half, driving 10 hours to get to a meeting and meet people, and waking up in the morning eager to see what God has in store for the day, and no longer waking up in the morning and rolling my eyes and saying, I gotta do this again. But, sobriety is a gift, and sobriety is a miracle. And, I love being able to share it with each one of you every week. Thanks.
Thank you, Trish. Nancy, come on in.
Nancy Alcohol. This is what my favorite chapter, also a vision for you. And reading this, it reminds me of my home group. When I was doing, is like there were like 1,000 people in one place, and they were all dressed up and they looked so nice and everything. But they are alcoholics, and they travel as far as San Diego to LA, Santa Barbara to LA, San Diego. Every Wednesday they did that, and it's like, wow, it's such an amazing group that I want to be a part of. But then the ministry comes also. Um, yeah, so it is like they help each other, and the fact that they socialize after the before after the meeting, instead of just like after the meeting, everybody separates and you go your own way, go the other way. But this group is like they would invite you to just hang out, they drink coffee and all that, and I really, really like that. And I think, one of the reasons that I stayed sober is because I was amazed that all these people will travel all the way that far just to go to a meeting. You know, everyone is there, and that's incredible for me. And I have a lot of attitudes. That's, yeah, so that's part of the book that I can relate to by some group, and yes, and there's a lot of other things. But thank you. This one also, this meeting also, is incredible. People from all over town. I started with Tennessee and then ended up to California and Maryland and New York. This is incredible. We have a good place here, and I know that I can call on you, and any time of the day you would answer my calls, and that's a great feeling. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nancy. Larry.
Yeah, I'm Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. I was reading this story, and I was thinking, about my first sponsor and how he instilled in me so heavily, helping others and service. Even before I really got my spiritual experience deep in me, but he instilled in me to help others, and he kept instilling that in me. And I was thinking about Bill and his story when you go back into Bill's story, how he, when he writes his story, he talks about his friend, and I'm thinking he's talking about Abby, how Abby had worked with him, instilled in him about working with others, and when how that how appallingly true for an alcoholic. If an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he would not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again, and if he drank, he would surely die. Then faith would be dead indeed. With us, it is just like that. He talks about him and his wife, how they abandoned themselves and just started working with others. This story we just read was mostly, the Akron and Cleveland and how it happened. But before Bill got there and the lobby experience, in this story that we read about, Bill had been working so much with alcoholics with very little success. And he went through, the big book tells us, depression, because it was hard, for him, because disappointment and depression, because he was trying to get these guys sober and they weren't getting sober, but his wife reminded him, but you're sober. But you're sober, Bill. You're still sober. And it's so true, and then, God just kind of picked Bill up when he goes to Ohio here for this business trip, and he runs into Dr. Bob, and they in turn get number 3, and Bill stays for a prolonged time because he needs this uplifting experience, because he's worked so long trying to get people sober, and God gives him a refreshing experience to go back and to work again with others, because as Bill's own words, it is a design for living that works in rough going. Working with others is a design for living in rough going. And it's so true that it is our lifeline. It's a design for living. It works when nothing else works for us. When we get low, when we get discouraged, there's nothing else that picks us up more than going out and telling somebody else about what God has done for us and how we have been delivered by the disease of alcoholism. Nothing else can pick us up more than sharing the good news that there is hope for alcoholism. That's all I got.
Thank you, Larry. Who's next? It's your meeting, folks. Art, come on in.
Good evening, friends. My name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. The thing that I was impressed with on tonight's readings was the idea of working with the families. And, you know, we hear about working with families before this, but what they were talking about here tonight was even those who didn't get sober, they worked with the families and brought to them to a spiritual way of life that was helpful. And I think sometimes in today's environment, we have a tendency to forget about that, and we're anxious to work with the alcoholics and to try to get them sober and show them the way to sobriety. And maybe part of that is because Al-Anon is such a strong influence today that we just send them over there and let them deal with the family. But I remember in my early experience with Alcoholics Anonymous, some of the guys that I worked with, I met their spouses and kids, and tried to encourage them as well. And you know, whether the alcoholic got sober or not, we still have an opportunity to give this message to the families as well. And you know, I realize that we send them over to Al-Anon and they get what they need over there, maybe. And I'm not knocking Al-Anon. I think Al-Anon is a fine program. They do a fine job of dealing with families of alcoholics. But sometimes, perhaps, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I sometimes wonder if the perspective of the alcoholic is part of the recovery for the families as well. And Al-Anon works within the realm of sympathizing or empathizing with the family of an alcoholic, because they have experienced what it is to live with an alcoholic. But I don't think they really have a very good grasp on the perspective of the alcoholic themselves. And sometimes forget that the alcoholic is suffering as well. And if they understood the suffering of the alcoholic, they may be a little more understanding of why he does the things that he does. And I'm not sure, maybe they do try to present that perspective to the families, but anyway, that's just what I was thinking of while we were reading these pages tonight. That in the early days, they did a lot of work with the alcoholics did a lot of work with the families of the people they were trying to get sober. And I don't see that happening today as much as I think it would be beneficial. That's my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Art. Anybody else? Are you stepping up there to unmute? Timmy, come on in.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to have to teach you how to raise your hand. You're clapping for yourself because you unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, you're going to have to teach me a lot more than just what raising my hand. But anyway, it's good to see y'all again tonight. You know, I am so grateful now about being led to service work. At first, you know, I was like thinking I wasn't the guy for it. I was unqualified. Now, when I'm asked, the only thing I see is exhaustion. Because even though it has saved my life time and time and time again, some days I just get tired. But, you know, I like the fact that I'm willing, because just like this week alone, you know, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of service work, and some of it's heartbreaking. I had the opportunity to go into an adolescent boys treatment center, and to see a 12-year-old alcoholic, it just blows my mind, even though I was 13 when I went to my first treatment. But I guess seeing it from the outside in or whatever is pretty, I don't know how to really describe it. It's a rude awakening, you know, of how this disease took a hold of me at an early age, and I'm just now getting really into the program at 53, you know. And then, like earlier today, I'm on another committee for overdose awareness, and they were doing some statistics on overdoses in our community, in our town alone, and over half of those were alcohol. You know, when I thought about, you know, overdoses, I just went to other outside issues, you know, but, you know, alcohol has just the biggest role into overdoses that other things do. And it said, you know, I think, again, you know, the book wakes me up to where it talks about how they would search out for service work. Man, there's so much going on now. That stuff's dropped at your front door. I mean, if you can't find a prospect, I think your eyes are closed. At least for me, they just seem to come from everywhere. They really do. But I find gratitude, that came up a few times. I find gratitude in that now. I used to like run from it because truth is I didn't want to do it. Now I've learned that, you know, if somebody asks me for help, I try my best to do what I can. But I've also learned that in helping them makes me study more. Because, you know, it's said, you know, a lot, you can't give away what you ain't got. I can give them my experience, strength, and hope, but, you know, there's a lot of things that I don't know. And I'm afraid if I don't know those things, that could be the next fallen victim to any number of things. But I do believe, like another story, I think everything that, during my service work, I think everything except for my mattress being caught on fire has happened. But you know, not one time did I ever get mad about it, because I could only imagine all the havoc that I was out there doing, ripping and running. But man, I'm sure glad I'm here today, sober and in a meeting, and being able to educate myself on you know, a little bit more action for tomorrow. But it's a good topic, man. I love service work. I love these stories now. It's just it's a whole different life to be able to maybe pass on a little bit of something that might just bring somebody in this room. And I like what Pickle said earlier tonight. He said, sentence them to a life of the big book. I'm down with that. I've been in prison half my life, and that's one sentence I will take. Go ahead and throw away the key, buddy. So, but anyway, it's good to see y'all. I'm glad you're here. I love you. That's all I got.
Thanks, Timmy. Good to see you. I'm going to go ahead and jump in before we close out. And Of course, my neighbor would now start his truck and rev it and try and blow up the engine, but that's his issues, not mine. Want to thank everybody for being here and for your contributions to this group. I'm going to start with this. You have 2, 3, 4 guys here, and this is the foundation for the second half of our third tradition of the long form, where any 2 or 3 are gathered together for sobriety may call themselves an AA group, provided that they have no other affiliation. Their whole purpose was to get together and to help each other to stay sober. We have become so watered down in Alcoholics Anonymous and gotten so far away from the primary purpose and turned so much of Alcoholics Anonymous into the mind get cat meeting. And I find it really tragic. Or a sponsor says, because the sponsor really doesn't want to hear about it, says, go to a meetings, chair about it. Right? It's like taking a five-gallon bucket of poop and throwing it on the table and letting it drip over everybody's lap. Oftentimes somebody will throw out a problem, and sometimes you get to hear the rest of the meeting share experience, strength, and hope, but other times you get to everybody else starts dumping out their bucket too. And I don't think that this was the intention of these guys originally. They were excited. They were so desperate that they were excited to have somebody to share with that understood what alcoholism is. And they kept to the focus of alcoholism, not all the other outside issues. They probably talked about that and sponsorship and so on. And even in our book on page 64, though it might be dealing with resentments, it says that when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. Oh, gee, should I maybe apply the spiritual solution to some of my other problems? Other than alcoholism? Would they maybe straighten out if that's the case? This also reminds me of Alcoholics Anonymous in 1973 when my mom got sober, and her being the first sober woman in my hometown. And there's only about 5 or 6 guys. And they also traveled because there was only one meeting a week. So they would go to other towns where there were meetings, sometimes 30 miles away. But they did this, and they fellowshiped together, and they talked, and they grew together as family. And I think that's extremely important. And it all goes back to the simplicity of, let's talk about alcoholism, what it does to us, but what sobriety can do for us. These 4 people were excited, and even though it took 18 months for them to bring another 7, making a total of 10, it was their excitement that caused those other 7 to join. If I'm not excited about my sobriety, it's not a problem with you guys, it's a problem within myself. If I'm not enjoying life sober, it's not a problem with you guys, it's a problem within myself. The program of Alcoholics Anonymous is not about me changing any person or anything on this planet, but it is about me becoming changed by living by a set of spiritual principles and giving back. I love the fact that a non-alcoholic couple opened their home. And there are so many in Alcoholics Anonymous that open their homes, right? And have over the years. There are so many non-alcoholics that were instrumental in helping Alcoholics Anonymous become successful. In fact, maybe there was a point in time when there were more non-alcoholics trying to help us become successful than there were actual alcoholics. You know, people that come to mind is like Sister Ignatia and Henrietta Saberling and these folks mentioned tonight. I hate to say it, sometimes I find myself discouraged in Alcoholics Anonymous. I watch our group grow, and then I watch our group shrink. You know, we hear people say in meetings all the time, well, I'm just claiming my seat, I'm checking in and participating in my recovery. But my sponsor and I talk about this often, the true participation in my recovery is actually becoming a productive citizen of the human race again. That's the true participation of it. So I know we have people with children and families, and we all have responsibilities. As we get sober, we need to balance responsibilities in our life. Nope, we can't make every meeting. Nope, we can't take on every commitment. But I love the desperation of these people, and I'm in full agreement with Art about working with families. I still work with families. That's what I watched my mother do for so many years, and she planted those seeds. So if there's a spouse that needs to talk to me or have a conversation with the three of us to learn how to communicate, I'm more than happy to help them do that. Because yes, Al-Anon is an absolutely wonderful program, but not everyone wants to go to Al-Anon. My wife had no desire to go to Al-Anon. She never saw me drunk. She said, they're nice people, but I just don't want to do that. I can't blame her. So we alcoholics have to make ourselves available, because we not only know how to speak from the experience of being practicing alcoholics at one time in our life, but we have the ability to speak from having recovered from the hopeless state of mind and body. And I think that's extremely important. Here where it talks about opening up for a meeting once a week for those who were interested in alcoholism. Back then, all meetings were closed. And the importance of closed meetings in our world today is that they're for alcoholics only. Then you hear somebody whisper at the table, just tell them you're an alcoholic, when they might not be. Still doesn't mean that they don't have something to learn, that a seed can't be planted. And open meetings, while we have them today, and most meetings are open, it's still only appropriate for an alcoholic to share in an open meeting. Those meetings are for, open meetings are for people who are interested in alcoholism. But if I'm there because I do too much gambling, or because I've got a sexual addiction or something else, while these same spiritual principles will work on all of those things, that isn't the common bond. Each and every one of us here in this room tonight is here because we got to Alcoholics Anonymous because of alcoholism, regardless of what other outside issues we might have. So therefore, it is important for us to honor our fifth tradition and carry the message that is in the book, Alcoholics Anonymous. If we don't, we will deteriorate. In our foundations meeting that we do, and we'll be doing one the first Monday of the month next week, 6:30 in this room. It's one of the things that we show of how we have slipped from 75+% recovery rate to really what's less than 5%. Now, I don't know that there's any accurate way to keep those numbers. There probably isn't. But it's also probably a pretty good estimation. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but one thing's for sure. These folks had desperation. I love what it said there, that it didn't matter what time of day or night it was, they would get their butts out of bed and they would go to the hospital and call somebody. How many of us say, oh, don't call me after 8 o'clock at night. I don't want to be bothered. I know for me, that's not how I am. I'm the guy that will take the phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning and spend the next 5 hours with somebody. Why do I do that? Because these guys gave me the example to follow. I've known many sponsors, don't call me if you've ever been drinking. Well, I'll tell you what, if you haven't had the pleasure and the experience of 12-stepping a wet drunk, maybe you should try it. Maybe you should try it, because it's not really about them growing. It's about me growing. And there's some important things I learned through that. I learn about love. I learn about patience. I learn about tolerance. But most importantly, I'm just planting seeds. And here's what they'll remember. They won't remember anything about a conversation about alcohol or sobriety or anything that I might say out of the book. So I don't talk to them about that stuff in those conditions. What I do talk to them about is life and what's going on, and asking how I can be helpful. The result of which is I have planted some seeds, and if they don't remember anything at all, they will remember that somebody who was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous cared enough to listen to them while they were in pain. You know, we live in this Zoom world today where it's easy to get to meetings. Oh, but I can't do that. I don't have time. Can't work it into my schedule. I can guarantee you, if any one of us was drinking, we would have time to drink and drink and drink and drink and drink. And that thing that you were talking about, Timmy, about ODing on alcohol, it's called alcoholic poisoning. And it happens every day, all over the country and all over the world. So everybody in Alcoholics Anonymous is an example. There are those who are an example of what not to be, and there are those who are an example of what you can become. I have no idea which one of those examples I am, and it's really none of my business except to try and be a child of God that tries to help another child of God. But I can't drag anybody into the boat. I need to have their help and their willingness. Many people say, yeah, I'm willing. willingness is an action word. Willingness without action, it's just words. I love this chapter, and it is a summary of the first 10 chapters and how we got here. A vision for you is truly a gift from God. And I've talked way too long. My apologies. Thank you. You ready, Trish?
I am. So from page 164, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you, Trish. We'll close out in our usual fashion, holding hands in our Zoom screens, but I want to say this real quick. There will be at least 263 alcoholics who die in this country today because of alcoholism, because of untreated alcoholism. 95,000 throughout the year and 3 million worldwide. Tragically, some of them have been to Alcoholics Anonymous and didn't want what we have to offer and have chosen a different path. Let us go into the world and be an example of a pathway to freedom. So after a moment of silence for those who are sick and suffering, please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Here's your moment. Thank you. Who will take us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come.
Kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
Amen.
Thanks for staying up with us, folks.
Thanks, everybody. Good
Great
meeting.
meeting.
Thanks for
Thanks,
being here.
everybody. It's good to see everybody.
Good night, William. Good night, Brian.